Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're having a lovely day. So in today's episode of how you're getting fucked by people who will never be held accountable, we're going to be talking about how every major telecom provider in the United States has been selling your location data. Not only have they been selling your location data, this is not even something that was included in the privacy agreement. So usually what happens is you get an end user license agreement that's like 900 pages long and it's written in legalese that you will never understand, and somewhere in that it'll say you don't actually own what you buy, we can do whatever we want, we can inject ads into everything, we can sell your data, forced arbitration, and this is something that I call EULA roofing, end user license agreement roofing, where the company decides that we are going to hide this somewhere so that we can technically say you should have noticed it, but you don't actually notice it. In this case, this is not EULA roofing, this is just straight up roofing, because they're not even telling you that they're going to be selling your data. And again, at the end of the day, I think everybody watching this probably had some sort of suspicion or paranoia. You probably had an idea that your data was being sold, that when you hit location on your phone, you're not the only one that knows your location. And sadly, the FCC has confirmed that this is true. One of the things that many of my more libertarian-leaning viewers will say, if you don't like this company, just buy from somebody else. One of the things you may notice here is that it is T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint, every major wireless carrier in America. You don't have a choice. You have 4 wireless carriers. So they can say, oh, you don't like your location data being... Oh, you can go to somebody... Oh, there is nobody else because we all do the same thing. This really is like that South Park episode where they're talking about the cable guy who says, oh, you don't like our Oh, there are no other packages. You have to pay for every channel. This is the equivalent of that happening in real life. As you can see here, the FCC has decided to fine every major carrier. AT&T, Sprint, which joined T-Mobile, and Verizon. Nearly $200 million for illegally sharing access to consumers' location data. And again, when you read through these documents, there's a bunch of them. I've linked to about 12 of them down below, so you can read the primary sources rather than news articles if you'd like. This information got sold to everybody from bond companies, bounty hunters, you name it, they sold the data to any one of these people. The document says this ugly practice violates the law, specifically Section 222 of the Communications Act, which protects the privacy of consumer data. The Commission has long recognized the importance of ensuring that information about who we call and where we go is not for sale. And we're going to show you how they decided to protect this with the fine that they levied on these companies, as well as the punishment. Not only were the fines levied completely fucking ridiculous, but you actually had argument within the FCC as to whether or not they should have been punished at all. Now, let's talk a little bit about the FCC's actions. Not only was there argument within the FCC as to whether or not these companies even should be punished, which we will dig into, and I'm going to try to summarize their arguments, the fines that were levied were a joke. So let's take a look over here at the net profit of each company. And I'm going to include this in the links down below so that you can verify any of this information for yourself. Do not trust me. If we take a look at Verizon, it looks like they're not doing that well. A few years ago, they made $22 billion, then $21 billion, and now they're down to $12.095 billion. So I'm going to play the tiniest violin in the world for Verizon for the fact that they're getting fined as they're losing revenue. If we take a look over here at AT&T, it looks like AT&T made $21 billion a few years ago. They lost $7 billion a year after that, but they made $15 billion afterwards. And if you take a look at T-Mobile/Sprint, because they merged, they lost $572 million last year, but they made up for it by making $4.7 billion in the next year. And when you take a look at the fines that were issued, the fines were a joke. T-Mobile was fined $91 million. Sprint was fined $12 million. AT&T was fined $57 million, and Verizon was fined $48 million. In other words, T-Mobile was fined 2.19% their net income for the year. AT&T was fined 0.22% their net income for the year. Verizon was fined 0.37% their net income for the year. I want you to imagine that you stole people's data about where they were, and then you sold that data to anybody, to random data brokers that gave it to bounty hunters, bail bondsmen, who the fuck knows when it comes to advertisers or whoever the hell wanted to actually purchase it. And you were fined this percentage. Let's say you make $75,000 a year. If you were fined the same percentage of your income that AT&T was fined, that would mean that you were fined about $165. Can you imagine if I sold people's personal data at my business and the fine for this was me getting fined $100 to $200 after making hundreds of thousands of dollars doing it? This is a joke. Why would you not do this again? This is literally worse than not giving them a fine at all. If you didn't give them a fine at all, they wouldn't know if it makes more sense to get away with it. Now that you've given them a fine that is not even a slap on the wrist, because I feel a slap on the wrist, they don't feel 0.22% of their net income. Now they know they can get away with it. It's like the reverse of this thing that sometimes happens to kids. You know, everybody says you need to hit the bully back. Once you hit the bully back, the bully will realize that you are going to resist him and he will back off. He wants an easy target. That's one side of the coin. The side of the coin that many people don't talk about is if you are weak and you don't know how to punch and you don't really have any skills and you punch the bully and he doesn't feel anything. And then he just goes to push you back and he smashes you into a wall and you break your nose. Before the bully thought that you were weak. Now he knows that you're weak. That's the flip side of the story. To be clear, I'm not saying you shouldn't hit the bully back, but there is a flip side of that story that never gets told. What the FCC did here is they walked up to a bully and they did this to him and then allowed the bully to punch him in the face, confirming to the bully that there are zero repercussions whatsoever for picking on the smaller child. And what the FCC did here by fining each one of these companies less than 1% of their net income is tell them, please keep doing this. Please keep screwing over the American consumer. They deserve to be screwed. They're stupid enough to allow us to continue regulating your industry. But this actually gets worse because it wasn't even everybody at the FCC that agreed that this fine should exist. This 0.2, 0.3, 2 point whatever percent of their net income should even be a punishment. When you read some of the dissent, Nathan Symington and Brendan Carr kind of disagreed. I'm going to try to use a very simple example here to represent what their arguments were. Let's say that you're not allowed to share snacks at school while you are in the lunchroom. And let's say that one of the kids shares a snack with somebody else. Rather than the punishment being that you get yelled at, now the punishment may be that you have 5 hours of extra homework to do every day, which means that somebody may not share snacks even if somebody needs it. So let's say, the kid next to you forgot to take his lunch in the morning and he doesn't have any money to buy lunch or a school voucher or anything. And, he has low blood sugar. I may not be as likely to share my lunch with this kid because the punishment is so high. The problem here is that there is absolutely no reason for my wireless carrier to be sharing my location data with anybody. Anybody. I am the only one that needs to know where I am. Not you. Not a bounty hunter. Not a bail bondsman. Not an advertiser. Not some creepy sick fuck that wants to stalk me because if he gives Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile or Sprint some money, that they get to figure out where I am. Because remember, I can't escape. Every carrier does this. Not only where I am right now, but where I was yesterday, where I was last year, where I was 5 years ago on April 26th at 7 in the morning. More importantly, the fact that you have the ability to purchase this data means that they're storing that data. And for how long? A month? A year? Indefinitely? Inquiring minds would like to know. There is no valid basis for the arbitrary and capricious finding that a single systemic failure to follow the Commission's rules may constitute however many separate and continuing violations the Commission chooses to find on the basis of the whole cloth creation of a novel legal ontology. The FCC has reached beyond its authority in these cases. Our CP&I rules now apply whether ever a carrier handles a customer's location information, whether or not it relates to the customer's use of a telecommunications service under Title II of the Communications Act. So Carr's concern appears to be with whether or not the FCC can do this versus the FCC, but more importantly, whether or not they should be fined this strictly when the CP&I rules may not have been very clear. For those of you who don't know what CP&I is Customer Proprietary Network Information. So this is the information that your provider is going to collect on you, like phone calls, location, and so on and so forth. The CP&I rules that we have are designed to protect the privacy of consumers by restricting how telecommunications companies can use and share this sensitive data. The carriers were actually arguing that the location data handled was not subject to CP&I rules, and they said that there's a lack of clear regulatory guidance on whether this information was considered CP&I. This is akin to me saying, it wasn't clear that when your door was locked that you did not want me to go in your house simply because you don't know me. I thought I should have been able to take a screwdriver, bash in your window, and then do this to open your door and sit on your couch. You pieces of shit are not only going to sell my data, but rather than say I'm sorry for sharing my location information for my entire past with whoever the fuck is willing to pay for it, you're willing to say that it wasn't clear you weren't allowed to do that. You sick sociopathic fucks. Like, this is like me saying, I didn't know that the privacy laws said I couldn't install trackers on every MacBook that I fixed so I could see what you were doing and sell the information. Oh, my bad. I didn't know that. In the words of Bill Burr.
For the 9 millionth time this year, they're talking about domestic violence, just in case, you didn't get the memo, Evidently, just some people didn't get it. It's not okay to slam your wife's head into the cupboard drawers because she didn't dry the can opener off properly, It's gonna fucking rust, right? How do you not know not to do that shit? Do they really have to keep talking about it? It's like wife beaters watching. Oh, fuck! Now I get it. Upset daisy, sweetheart. Here we go. There you go. Oh.
Is this where society is now? And to be clear, read down below. I am including the direct PDFs from the FCC, not linking to a news website. These are the arguments that these companies are making, and there are people at the FCC that actually believe that this was too much punishment. Our government is a joke, and it's not even their fault. It's ours because we put up with it, and we shouldn't put up with it anymore. If there's anything that I've learned from the history class that I've been taking over the past few weeks for fun, when you take a look at the shit that people were not willing to tolerate in the 1700s, and then you look at the shit that we're willing to tolerate today, it's a crying damn shame. That's all I'm saying. There is one area where I think I may be wrong here. Maybe the fine is too high. Hear me out here. They're not fining the company. They're not fining AT&T and Verizon and T-Mobile. They're fining you. They're going to increase their prices to offset this fine so that they make the same or more profit. Now, you may think, Louis, they can't do that. There's competition. If they do that, somebody will lower their prices. The only company that would be able to lower their prices in that instance would be the company that did not get fined if they want to make the same amount of profit. They want to increase their revenue at the same rate. So the company that didn't sell user info that wasn't fined, they'd have lower expenses. They'd be able to offer lower price service and undercut the people that wanted to pass on the cost. Except again, you must remember the South Park episode about the cable provider. Oh, it sounds like you don't like us as a cable company. Maybe you could choose there are no other cable companies. We have 4 providers in America, and 2 of them are operating under the same company. So realistically speaking, we have 3. If each of those 3 providers has been fined at the same time, a similar amount of money, that means that each of those 3 providers who have no competition anywhere else, again, they were all doing the same thing, can just raise their rates by passing it on to you. AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile and Sprint are not paying this fine. You are if you're their customer, because when their price goes up, they're going to incorporate these fines into their increased prices. And you are not going to be able to go anywhere else, because in America, if you want to live a life with a smartphone, with a data plan, if you want to be able to walk around and receive phone calls instead of receiving them on a rotary phone in your house, you have 3 choices. So maybe it's a good thing that they didn't get punished too bad, because at the end of the day, it's you and I that are paying this fine, not them. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.